Hi there, today I want to talk about the media and the temptation to peddle false narratives about Manchester United Football Club. This week we're seeing stories across multiple outlets promoting England manager Gareth Southgate as a new favourite to replace Erik Ten Hag, who's still the manager of Manchester United. A story many thought was a joke when it first ran in the Daily Star. When I first heard the news, I didn't know whether to laugh or whether to cry. But is it fact or is it fiction? Even former players Roy Keane and Gary Neville are now saying they can see Southgate as the next manager of Manchester United. It's a prospect that's hugely unpopular with many Manchester United fans, especially as match-going supporters are, I believe, firmly behind the current manager. But during international break, the Southgate stories are a predictable example of what I call kite flying. Not so long ago, we were reliably informed that Graham Potter was the top of a so-called shortlist to replace Ten Hag, another hugely unpopular idea with many supporters. But just like the Potter speculation, the Southgate narrative is allegedly based on inside information fueled by perceived circumstances. We all know that Dan Ashworth used to work with Gareth Southgate, and it's clear that he highly respects and admires his man management skills. I'll come back to the Gareth Southgate agenda and tell you why I really don't want him at Manchester United. But how did we get here? Speculation about the manager, of course, was inevitable from the moment Jim Ratcliffe was confirmed as the new co-owner. Before that, you may remember, we were promised by many of the same media outlets who pushed the stories about Potter and now Southgate that a mysterious sheikh from Qatar was definitely going to buy Manchester United Football Club. Well, in a two-horse race, they did have a 50-50 chance of getting it right, I guess. A year before that, when I was campaigning for Jim Ratcliffe to bid for Manchester United, the media universally insisted there was zero chance of the Glazers ever selling any part of Manchester United Football Club to anyone. It's interesting to see how the media flip-flops as the landscape changes. I've personally worked in the media since the 1970s, and I've seen firsthand what it's like and how the media operates, how all media platforms are sucked into sharing misinformation from time to time. I say from time to time, it's a lot more frequent than that, as you all know. Sometimes they get it right, of course. They may even be right about Gareth Southgate. But the reality is that many journalists do walk a fine line between fact and fiction, manipulated by agents, by publicists, by sponsors and other stakeholders with a vested interest. At the same time, journalists are all under pressure from their bosses to feed the daily demand for headlines to keep their business thriving. And that, of course, is what the media is. The media is a business. Headlines sell newspapers. Headlines attract viewers and listeners to broadcast channels. It's always been that way, and it always will be. But the truth is now less important than being first with a story that goes viral, especially when the story goes viral, and that's what seems to have happened with this Gareth Southgate story. Now the currency is clickbait. The fight for eyeballs in an online world where media has grown to an all-time high of competing voices is now more competitive than it's ever been. When it comes to sports news, there's nothing bigger. No news is bigger than news about Manchester United Football Club. There's an insatiable appetite for the latest news and gossip about Manchester United. That's why we see a daily cocktail of stories about United on every single media outlet, just about every single day, amplified by fan channels and social media aggregators reacting to every perceived twist and turn. That's why it's inevitable that much of what we read and hear is pure speculation and guesswork. That's why it's no surprise when we get narratives like the Gareth Southgate for Manchester United stories or the Graham Potter for Manchester United stories. True or not, once a story is trending, its amplification gives it credibility. Rival outlets quote each other as a source of reference, and all too often the facts don't get in the way of a good story or a headline. That's the way it is in the media. In many ways, it's just like a never-ending soap opera, where the lines between a good storyline and reality are constantly blurred. As standards have fallen, we're also bombarded by influencers and YouTubers with such huge following that their voices are being heard and recycled too. As a media person with an old-fashioned journalistic background and standards, I've learned to read between the lines when assessing the merits of a story, especially stories about Manchester United Football Club. But sometimes my own narrative is shaped around my personal opinion, as it is in this case. For sure, Gareth Southgate is a really nice guy. He's done a great job reconnecting the national team with the general public, and that in itself is a great achievement. He's fostered a Team England mentality that's broken down club rivalries, uniting players within the England squad, and that again is another great achievement by Gareth Southgate. No wonder he's highly respected by people like Ashworth. He's even charmed the legacy media to the point where we rarely see the toxic coverage that used to target the England manager and our national team, especially before major tournaments. That's an impressive achievement. So many impressive achievements by Gareth Southgate, backed by a consistent progress to the latter stages of successive tournaments. But there's always been a safety-first approach by the England manager, and that's what's held England back, in my opinion, from going that extra mile. A reluctance to really go for it and trust the formidable talent that Southgate has at his disposal. This summer at the Euros, Southgate will have a golden opportunity to finally win silverware. With a golden generation of talent, that's the envy of just about every other country in Europe. Jude Bellingham, Harry Kane, Phil Foden, they're currently among the best and most exciting players in the world. United, well, we could be well represented by Marcus Rashford, Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw if he's fit, and now Kobbie Mainoo. They're all in contention for the Euros. With a more attack-minded manager, I would make England favourites to win the Euros. Maybe Southgate will get lucky this time around, and England's exceptional players will grab their chance of glory. That would certainly improve Southgate's chances of getting the Manchester United job if it ever came up. But even if England do win the Euros, I absolutely do not want Gareth Southgate to replace Erik Ten Hag, and I'm sure there are many who feel the same way. That, in my mind, would be a huge, huge mistake. Southgate is just too cautious for Manchester United, and I really don't think he's got the tactical acumen to be successful in the Premier League. There's a big difference between being manager of a national side and an elite Premier League team. And with Southgate's apparent obsession with picking older players based on reputation, I don't trust him to get the best out of our academy graduates who are so essential to the future of this football club. His blind loyalty to players like Jordan Henderson alone is enough to rule him out of ever getting anywhere near the Manchester United job, in my humble opinion. But I'm not Jim Ratcliffe, and I'm not advising him at Ineos. Stranger things have happened in football, of course, so I'm not going to say Southgate at United is 100% impossible, but the truth is we already have a good manager who's nearly 2 years into a long-term project. For me, there's no doubt that Erik must carry on. But whatever happens between now and the end of the season, I don't believe Southgate can ever be the right fit for Manchester United Football Club. In my opinion, he's a really nice guy, but he's just not a good fit for this football club. I don't think the fans will accept him either, and that's one of the big reasons why I think it would be a huge mistake for Manchester United to pick Gareth Southgate to replace Erik Ten Hag. And let's be honest, he may not even want the job, especially if he gets the chance to carry on with England. Meantime, I do think it's disrespectful to Erik Ten Hag to be talking about who's going to replace him, because the season is far from over. We've still got a chance of winning silverware, and if Erik Ten Hag wins the FA Cup, he'll be the first manager to win trophies in his first 2 seasons. And Erik, of course, is a manager who deserves our backing until the end of the season at least. Well, that's my opinion. That's the way I see it. And I think we should stop all this talk about Gareth Southgate now and give Erik the support he deserves until the end of the season.